You are angering me. Ugh.
The thing is, I would be fine with it if it were called, Metroid 4 on the box and on the title screen. If it just said Metroid 4, semicolon, Metroid Fusion. And I guess same for 3 and Super Metroid. The thing is, it really doesn't. It's referred to everywhere as Super Metroid, as Metroid Fusion.
Yeah, look, I understand.
And that's the thing. It's like, just having the number there doesn't really make it, considering there's other things that come between it. I mean, it's only 3 and 4 based on the fact that they were released in that order.
I judge what the title of a game is called by the game itself, not a cover.
Funny, the title screen of Super Metroid calls it Super Metroid, not Metroid 3, Super Metroid.
Yeah. Look, in Super Metroid, I understand people get confused because the cover of the Super Metroid shows Super Metroid, everyone refers to a Super Metroid, but the game itself, the thing that we're playing, says Metroid 3 first, and then it says Super Metroid. So it's obviously, Super Metroid it can mean two things. One, it's obviously the Super Nintendo gimmick of adding super to the beginning of a lot of things. They did that with Star Wars, for God's sakes. But it's also signifying the Super Metroid that you encounter near the end of the game. But that's not the point. We're getting a little too offhand here. My point is, the game itself states that it's Metroid 3, therefore it is Metroid 3. Metroid Fusion states that it's Metroid 4 at the beginning of the game, therefore it is Metroid 4. I'm out of Pepsi.
It's not 4 chronologically. It's even more confusing by the fact that Fusion and Prime were released on the same day. I know you're saying Prime is its own separate thing.
Yeah, it doesn't matter.
I am fine with admitting.
It doesn't matter what release dates they're on. It all depends on what they take place in the story. But there's two separate series. Even though they're linked together in terms of story, they're considered two separate series. Other M is only making it a little more confusing because it's not part of there's no number on it, and it's not called Metroid Prime 4.
Then what? Then how would you explain?
This will all be solved when we see the game. It was hopefully to clear this up, it'll be called Metroid 3.5. But then again, that will be called. Then that would have the longest title in the world: Metroid 3.5, Metroid Other M. That is really redundant.
Then I would go on to argue is that it goes by unless the specific title is that it goes chronologically. I mean, you wouldn't call Ocarina of Time Zelda 4. Yes, it came out 4th, but that doesn't make it 4.
But Ocarina of Time never states in the game itself that it's Zelda 4. Neither does Link to the Past state that it's Zelda 3. We had Zelda and we had Zelda 2, and then they realized how bad this would be, and then they decided to call the next game just Link to the Past.
And yet they did it with Metroid.
Yeah.
20 years after the fact, even.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. It's Prime's fault.
It's Prime's and Other M's fault.
Yeah.
Well, mostly Other M's. I can accept Prime being its own thing since there's no story connectivity between other stuff other than the fact that Metroid.
If it was called Metroid 3.5.
Well, it'd all be solved if they hadn't used fucking the 2 little slides.
Or,
not even any importance.
You know what? It would have all been solved if they just made it a sequel to Fusion. And just called 5. Problem solved. No, it's another fucking prequel. Give me a sequel to Fusion, Nintendo.
It's a prequel to a sequel.
Sequel. Jesus, it's the worst kind.
No, it's a prequel to a sequel of a sequel.
Oh, my mind just melted.
No, hold on. I've got it right. I got it right now. It's a sequel to a sequel and a prequel of a sequel at the same time.
No, stop it! You're scrambling my brain circuits. I think we should end it here before my mind becomes a complete mind waste.
It's not 3 and 4, it's Super Metroid and Metroid Fusion.
Fuck you! Metroid 3 is Super Metroid, Metroid 4 is Metroid Fusion. And there are tons of people who back me up with that.